guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called Born as the Daughter of the Wicked Woman. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! After a year following the cute purple-haired baby's birth, she suddenly recalls her previous life and discovers she is now living in the novel her friend once recommended to her. The novel has a nice ending, as you would expect. The female lead defeats the villainess dies, and the main characters have children and live happily ever after, blah blah blah. However, our girl ends up being reborn as the villainess's daughter. They say the novel had a happy ending, but the truth is that the villainess was the male lead's wife, and they had been happily married for 3 years until the female lead entered the story as a servant and had an affair with him. A homewrecker and a cheating bastard. The wife did her best to protect her position as both wife and duchess, but it only made her a villainess. What can we expect from a novel that favors the female lead? The Duke locked his own wife in a tower, but she was not alone. She was carrying their child in her womb. Except, while she's breastfeeding our unnamed baby here, the Duchess is constantly in a daze, sobbing and grieving her ex-husband. When she was old enough to walk, they separated our girl from her mother, who wept no tears for her, and she entered an orphanage operated by the Empire. But the hardship was so severe that she wished to return to the tower instead. She is now 6 years old, but the workers in the orphanage continue to mistreat her simply because she's the villainess's daughter, and even the director appears unconcerned, until a new worker, Yulene, enters the orphanage and is so friendly to her that she treats her like her own child. Then one day, our girl is led back to the tower to say goodbye to her mother, but she doesn't expect to see her so frail and ill. Yet her mother's entire being is still searching for the Duke. She survived cruelty in the orphanage, but she can't help but feel even more regret now that her own mother is still not looking at her. However, because these are her final moments with her, she speaks out and informs her own mother that she has named herself Daphne, and that she understands her longing to be the Duke's wife rather than be her mother. That's so sad. No one even gave her a name. She then reassures her mother that she will never forget her and hopes that she finds relief from her pain as she holds her hand. At long last, her mother sees her and is ready to call her name, but she is unable to do so and dies with tears in her eyes. Daphne wails by her side, but this awful guard does not want to give her time to mourn, dragging her away and even smiling as he informs her that her mother would now be punished in hell. While she is being pulled, she notices the guards' and servants' expressions, and none of them show any remorse for a child who has just lost her mother. In the novel, they not only tell the villainess's death, but also her daughter's death, and she is destined to be beaten to death tomorrow. As soon as they exit the tower, the guard shoves her to the ground, and everyone stares at her negatively until Yulene rushes over to help. Upon noticing her injured knee, Yulene initially intends to return Daphne to the orphanage, but before that, she smiles as she informs her that she will first meet with someone. Daphne has no idea who this person is until she sees a man in front of her with navy blue hair and gold eyes like her, and she realizes he is her father. Daphne begins to tremble, convinced that her father despises her and is terrified to look into his eyes. So Yulene introduces her to the Duke while a guard informs him that she is Freyr's daughter. This scumbag doesn't even realize this is his own daughter! Wow! The Duke simply scoffs, but Daphne wants to use this chance to get close to him to avoid dying tomorrow. So she extends her hand and smiles as she calls him father. But the Duke just turns his back and denies her. She tried to pull that cute daughter act, but it didn't work. The fact that poor Freyr was able to pay people to assassinate his so-called wife Eunice leads him to believe that Freyr must have sold her own body and had a kid. After that, he examines Freyr's corpse and tells the guard to dispose of her as if he had never loved her. Daphne is enraged, since that is how the story of the villainess ends. Be the next villainess and make this cheating, irresponsible Duke pay! Returning to the orphanage, Daphne is taken aback by the abrupt transformation of Yulene's lovely and gentle personality into a vicious one. What the? Not a single person is on her side? She is only playing kind to Daphne because she hopes to become a nanny for the Duke's household. The only person who has been kind to her is acting strangely, which confuses Daphne. Not only that, but the other orphans start mocking her because her villainous mother has recently died. In the face of the children's persistent bullying, Daphne chooses to leave them be and retreat to her room, despite her anger. The audacity! Hello, you're orphans as well! She feels helpless hearing those baseless accusations, but then realizes she doesn't have to put up with all the bullies. So she laughs evilly and traumatizes the kids as she explains that she simply became an orphan after her mother died. But that isn't the case for them. In short, they are abandoned. Savage! However, Yulene grabs Daphne's hand and scolds her for being so cruel to the other kids when she just watched them bullying her earlier. Daphne enters her room crying herself out because she doesn't want to be killed tomorrow. She is so down that she doesn't notice that it's nearly dusk until Yulene walks in and tells her that she'll be punished for being rude earlier. This girl comes closer to Daphne, telling her that she'll be going somewhere tomorrow so she can reflect on her actions, and then locks her in her room. My blood is boiling over this girl. Daphne couldn't say anything, but one thing is certain. That place will be where she gets battered to death. She is so terrified by the realization that she is determined to get away today. She has had enough of feeling sorry for herself, and she can't believe she just accepted her fate. However, she does find a silver lining. She would have missed witnessing her mother's dying moments if she had fled sooner. Now that she is thinking clearly, she recalls that a second part of the story will begin after her death, in which the Duke's daughter will embark on an adventure to a neighboring empire, making a friend and marry happily. The family that has abandoned her and her mother is fated to have a happy ending even though they are the wicked ones. So Daphne smiles as she vows not to let this second part of the story develop. Ooh, I am loving this new side of her. She intends to change the plot, and if it still results in the main character's happy ending, so be it. If not, she wins. That's right, ruin the story. Daphne then adjusts her bed because her room has a hidden door connecting to the storage. The adults forced her to stay in a closet-like room alone to separate her from the other children, but it now comes in handy. Before she leaves, she needs some sort of plan, so she begins absorbing how the second section goes. Following the deaths of her and her mother, the new male lead attempts to assassinate a high-ranking lady but fails. However, due to his ambition, the lady adopts him and names him her successor. In the end, he will meet and marry the Duke's daughter, which Daphne intends to prevent. To do so, she needs a place to hide, and her only option is Chloe Benedetto, the person who would adopt the male protagonist. Chloe chose the male lead for a reason. She intends to use him for revenge. She was also from the orphanage where Daphne is now staying, but was sold to a black market by her friend, who is now the orphanage's director. Chloe went through a lot before rising to the top because she truly wanted her vengeance. In the story, the orphanage director is not particularly thorough and just hides the black market-related documents in the drawer. So Daphne plans to steal them and use them to make a deal with Chloe. While everyone is still asleep, Daphne sneaks off to the director's office to scan the drawer, but there's a problem. It requires a key. Please, don't get caught! Even though Daphne starts to freak out, she soon recovers because she knows the director is sloppy, so she assumes he stashed it away somewhere near his desk. After that, she checks the planter next to the desk, and lo and behold, there it is, the key. She seizes the document, despite her complete lack of literacy in the novel's alphabet, and tucks a special stamp, reasoning that it must be important given that it is hidden. In a last-ditch effort to hide from the director and Yulene, she dives beneath the couch as soon as she hears footsteps coming toward the office. Their conversation turns to her and Yulene's plans to take her somewhere. But what shocks Daphne the most is that she overhears them being overly affectionate. Okay, so these two are secretly dating. Following their departure, Daphne too resolves to get away in a hurry before seeing a lamp that gives her a brilliant idea. Much to her delight, she recalls that the orphanage keeps the lamps in the storage room filled with oil. Daphne returns to her room, places a piece of her clothing on the bed, and leaves her shoe in front of the door to make it appear as if she's in the room before setting fire to it. This is how she starts over, stays alive, and ruins the plot. She proceeds to shatter the lamp and throw the match she had lit, setting off a massive blaze that makes her death in her room all the more plausible. Daphne looks over one last time, knowing that the director and the children will both be devastated by the fire damage. Then, completely guilt-free, she walks away like a boss. I'm really watching her like a proud mom. Now, on to the next revenge. Soon after, Daphne finds the hidden door that leads to the Benedetto estate. Confident that this will be her key to a fresh start, she tries to recall the right passcode, and presto, the door unlocks. She enters and finds that no one is there, but she knows she is where she is supposed to be, so she continues inside, grinning because she feels like her plans are finally coming together. Then, out of nowhere, a blinding light illuminates her surroundings. Much to her surprise, she spots a young man with green hair who is just as taken aback by her arrival, and he asks how she got there. Daphne bravely explains that she is actually there to meet the head of the merchant company, but he promptly tells her that she isn't someone she can easily meet and warns her to leave. Daphne is determined not to give up now that she has reached this point and has chosen to live and alter the story. With that in mind, she takes a deep breath and screams that she wants to negotiate a deal with the company's head. As a result, the company head approaches them, clearly agitated, and inquires as to who is causing the disturbance at this late hour. When Daphne first sees her, she instantly expresses her desire to work with her and join her company in exchange for what she needs. Daphne then hands over all the documents from her bag, and as the woman looks through them, she sighs and says that any child living on the streets could get them. The woman's evident dissatisfaction has Daphne in a state of panic as she frets what to do. No. Chloe stares at her, noting her distinct hair color and the fact that anyone can tell from a glance that she is the wicked woman's daughter. So making a deal with Daphne will be a loss for her, and she hands the documents to the green-haired man, explaining that she does not want to deal with the consequences of taking her in and instructing her to leave. Then, all of a sudden, they find out that the orphanage is on fire, and Chloe is terrified for the children's safety. Daphne, though, assures them that they need not be afraid. She herself started the fire in the closet that had been her room, and she had to fake her death, so she locked the doors. Knowing full well that she would be beaten to death if she returned, Daphne turns around, determined to find another way to survive. Just then, Chloe changes her mind and introduces herself, prompting Daphne to smile and share her own name. Chloe then asks what she wants, and with a serious expression, she tells her she wants to live. Out of nowhere, Chloe then says she would like a flower as a greeting, but Daphne doesn't understand why she should bring one in this cold weather. The woman reassures her that she won't ask if it's easy and goes on to explain that there are flowers outside the castle gates even in this weather, but that it's dangerous to go out there at night because there are monsters and wild animals, and Daphne could die trying to find them. After all the explanations, the woman asks if Daphne will still bring the red flower before dawn. Daphne, however, believes the woman is merely trying to gauge her determination, so she agrees to get it before daybreak. Lennox Benedetto introduces himself to Daphne as he hands her a pair of shoes, and as she expresses her gratitude, he puts a robe around her to prevent her from catching a cold, and he holds her tiny hand while they walk away to the castle gates. He seems nice. Walking hand in hand, they venture into the dark woodland. Lennox, unable to offer assistance, can only offer a warning and urge Daphne to simply withdraw. However, our girl must pass this test if she is to survive, so she sets out as soon as Lennox tells her she must walk straight. Even though she knew it would be tough, the pitch darkness and the silence are sending shivers down her spine. Then she hears the howl of a wolf, and she knows she would die in its jaws, so she dashes away as quickly as she can, tripping over her own feet. She is relieved that the wolf does not follow her, so she makes an effort to get up, but the pain in her feet is so severe that it becomes difficult for her to move. Poor Daphne couldn't help but feel helpless again, as if she had reached her limit. But just as she's about to give up, a purple butterfly appears. Daphne finds it peculiar that a butterfly is circling her in the cold, but she interprets it as a sign that it wants her to follow. As she shakily stands up to chase after the butterfly, she notices that its color matches her mother's hair. No, I really want to believe that is her mom helping her. After all her trouble, Daphne still manages to crack a smile when she spots the moonlight and the flower she's been searching for perched on a cliff. Although it is somewhat steep, she is now refueled and prepared to climb. She climbs carefully and calmly, with the butterfly keeping a close eye on her every move, until she reaches the peak where she may pluck the exact flower she needs. Daphne is overjoyed that her initial mental reaction is to inform her mother of her success. On top of that, she thanks the butterfly, who looked just like her mom before her injured leg gave up and she fell. At the same time, Lennox regretted leaving Daphne alone, and he is now searching for her when he sees her fall from a distance. He better do something! Daphne's leg hurts, her vision is fuzzy, and all she can think about is keeping the flower secure in her hands. She then awakens in such pain that even breathing is difficult, but she decides to sit up and notices a smiling man with pink hair and glasses handing her water. Also, did Daphne's hair color shift to a very pale purple? The guy explains that she fell, and Lennox was the one who brought her home. I was hoping Lennox would catch her, though. He goes on to say that the flower she plucked has already been sent to his mother, Chloe, which relieved Daphne greatly. Then he eventually introduces himself as Riccardo Benedetto, the person who has been looking after her for the last few days. However, they have a problem. Her legs need additional treatment before healing. Daphne appears unaffected when she finds she can't feel her legs, and nonchalantly asks Ricarda if she'll never be able to use them again. If it was me, I would be in a panic. This drives Ricarda to grab her hands and tell her that he will make sure her legs recover now that he is her big brother, confusing Daphne, who takes his hand and claims she has no brother. Just then, Chloe enters the room, relieved to see Daphne in good health, and apologizes for putting her to a risky test. In her defense, she assumed Daphne would be terrified and flee, not returning with the flower. The Stacia flower can heal pain and is extremely rare due to its difficulty in cultivation. Thus, Chloe is amazed by Daphne's knack to defy the odds. Daphne is overjoyed when Chloe declares that she has passed the test. And when Chloe asks what she wants in exchange, Daphne firmly states that she wants to be her successor, which surprises the Benedetto family. Daphne clarifies that she only needs the title. She does not need to be the true heir. She needs the title to prevent the male lead from becoming Chloe's successor, ensuring that the story does not continue. However, Chloe still doesn't understand why Daphne has to go to such lengths when she could simply ask for financial help. So our girl explains firmly that she wants to change her fate. Everyone wants her gone because she's the villainess's daughter, but she refuses to go along with it and wants to live. She wishes to live happier than those who pray for her to suffer, even if it's a losing fight, which touches Chloe's heart. Daphne's desires push Chloe to open up since she too has suffered greatly, but she has no intention of allowing those who caused her pain to sleep peacefully. The documents Daphne provided her will serve as a strong proof against the director. The fact that Chloe and Daphne share a desire for revenge makes Chloe smile. She only intends to lend a helping hand at first, but after seeing Daphne's resolve, she decides to name her successor. She then cuddles Daphne, who is now a Benedetto, their family's new baby. Yay! One step closer to achieving her goals. It's a fresh day, and Lennox is carrying her around because they don't have a wheelchair yet, and crutches might be too difficult for her to use. However, his kindness is making Daphne so anxious, given that she's been betrayed by someone nice before. Who was that again? Yulene? No, urine, 'cause she stinks. According to Lennox, Daphne's hair turning white is likely a result of the agony and shock she endured. Much like Kaneki, if you guys know him. Lennox regrets not finding her sooner, but Daphne reassures him that while she lost her mother's hair color, she now has her new mother's hair color. New life, new hair. They're having a meal right now, and Daphne's eyes are beaming because it's probably her first proper meal. After eating, Chloe turns serious, stating that Daphne must follow some of her orders. Chloe is someone who provides a roof over her head and food in her stomach, so Daphne is aware that Chloe will expect something in return, and she is now preparing herself for whatever it may be. However, she is taken aback when Chloe simply states that she needs to keep her body healthy. Second, Chloe wants her to think of at least 5 things she wants to do, which confuses Daphne because she expected Chloe to ask her to do some work. I didn't imagine Chloe would be such a great mother to her. Chloe emphasizes that being healthy is vital and that their business would be based on her desires, which is why she wants to know what Daphne wants. She assures Daphne that she can spend as much time as she needs to think, and she gives her a small lesson about how merchants sometimes need to act ignorant before giving her her old bag. Daphne recalls putting the mystery seal in there as her final card on her sleeve and wonders if she could tell Chloe about it. However, after hearing Chloe's lesson earlier, she decides not to tell, which makes Chloe happy because it is what she expects of her daughter. Lennox then proceeds to cut Daphne's hair, and she tells Lennox that in the orphanage, she used to cut her own hair because others were making fun of her purple hair. She then nonchalantly mentions that there were worse things that happened, prompting our soft-hearted Lennox to cry. Daphne has no idea why Lennox is upset, why Ricarda is learning magic to find a cure for her legs, or why Chloe treats her like a real daughter. A part of her believes that these people are genuine, but it is so strange that she begins to cry and blurt out that she's a greedy child. So she asks Lennox to stop being nice to her, fearful that one day they will turn their backs on her. That is just so sad. Daphne ends up with a fever and is still in a trance when she awakens to Ricarda scolding Lennox for not soothing her when she cried. Then she watches Chloe talk about how she respects her for hiding her last card, the stamp. Daphne blushes as she hears their worry and shuts her eyes, hoping it's not a dream. Dear, it isn't, and they all love you. She is now completely awake and appears flustered when Chloe calls her baby. Cutie. Chloe starts wiping Daphne's face with a damp cloth, which feels so warm that she becomes anxious again. Daphne starts crying and asks her new mom why they are so good to her, but she soon covers her mouth because she fears Chloe will hate her for being a crybaby. To convince a traumatized child like her, actions speak louder than words, so her mom carries her to her new bedroom. Unlike the tower and storage area in the orphanage, her new room is very shining, with her own closet full of clothes, a dressing table, and Chloe even prepares her a doll. Once again, Daphne breaks down in tears as she tells Chloe how much she loves her room. She thought Chloe would just give her a plain old room to sleep in, but now she's feeling so loved that she's scared she'll begin to get used to it. Chloe lowers Daphne to her bed and begins to comfort her, saying that she doesn't want her to have to endure what she has. She holds Daphne's face, claiming her as her own daughter, and although Daphne initiated their relationship, she will continue it and be her mother. And with a motherly smile, she tells her to focus on her health and enjoy life right now so that she can reach her goals. Lennox and Ricarda, she goes on to say, have no intention of becoming her heirs, so Daphne need not be concerned about that. Never in her wildest dreams did Daphne expect to hear such kind words from anyone, but now that she's starting to feel the love pouring into her, she wants to stop turning it down. After embracing her mom for the first time, she asks Chloe sweetly if she can now call her mom. The next thing on Daphne's list is to pick up writing skills, which Chloe has already set her sights on. Suddenly, Ricarda and Lennox show up, embracing her, and this time, Daphne accepts it with glee. Aw, the boys have been raised so well, so Chloe will undoubtedly be an excellent mother to Daphne as well. Days have passed, and Daphne's new family has been taking turns accompanying her, even bickering over who gets to spend time with her. Plus, she's been smiling more frequently recently. Daphne chooses to work on her assignment one night while waiting for her mother to return home. It is almost past 10 and she should be sleeping now. But because she accidentally drank coffee earlier thanks to her brothers, who were scolded for it, she is much more full of life. Suddenly, the magical portal clock starts glowing, signaling that her mom has come back. Wait, no! Someone else has stepped through! The darkness makes Daphne's vision blurry, and she suddenly realizes that this could be the arrival of the male protagonist. However, she is confused as to why two people show up. Daphne is deep in thought as a violent figure rushes at her, seemingly intent on eliminating her. This man is surely not the ML. I mean, she is supposed to be sleeping right now, but a mishap involving coffee has put her in danger with an assassin? It's almost like the plot actually wants her dead. As the man threatens to kill her before going after Chloe, Daphne cries out and calls her mother, Lennox, and Ricarda. Good job! Her brothers are swift on her trail after hearing her scream. As soon as they step foot into the room, the man starts yelling at them to stay back, and Lennox and Ricarda have no idea that another assassin lurks in the shadows. They should have known better than to tamper with the wrong house. Now our bubbly Ricarda is fuming mad and uses his magic to bind the assassin as Lennox catches Daphne. Big Bro won't ever let her fall again. While they are distracted, the young assassin attempts to sneak up on Ricarda from behind, but you aren't swift enough, so the child is now also tied up and restrained. However, it appears that the boy is stronger than they thought, as he breaks the restraints with only his strength, startling both Ricarda and Lennox. The kid rushes at them, but they're confused because he just passed over them and is now heading for the other assassin. He pulls out his dagger and promptly beheads the fellow. Whoa! A child who murders without hesitation is a bit scary for a main lead. The kid then turns around and prepares to attack the siblings when Mom finally arrives. Where have you been, Mother? With a flick of her fingers, a smoke-like magic binds the kid assassin in chains. Mom is surely powerful. Daphne then glances at the child, and his purple eyes immediately alert Daphne to the fact that he is the male protagonist from the novel's second half. His eyes are beautiful, but they appear so lifeless. Lennox then expresses his desire to kill the child due to his deadly nature, and Ricarda agrees. But then their mother says that they should think more carefully, which convinces Daphne that her mom will not kill the male lead, given that, in the original novel, this child is her successor. Well, my dear, things have changed, and you've completely misunderstood your mom. In reality, she is plotting ways to punish the child who assaulted their precious baby. Daphne now acknowledges that she has already altered the plot since taking over the male lead's role. She assumes that if the lead character dies now, the whole novel will end, which is ideal for her survival, but she soon becomes aware that with those thoughts in her head, she is no different from the individuals who have mistreated her. As the one who is supposed to pass away, she is now being replaced by the male lead, which is something that her guilt is unable to overlook. After considering what to do, she finally speaks up, stating that they should not kill someone, especially a child. This may have been her chance to finish the story, but our girl still has a heart despite everything she's been through. Well, I get it. Her revenge is most likely directed at her father. Her mother then carries her, appearing regretful while her brothers do the same, and they all agree with Daphne's decision. She then looks at the male lead again and notices that something is seriously wrong with his eyes, so Ricardo checks on him with his magic, which is a bit painful. But as the agony wears off, the boy's expression brightens up, and then he passes out. Then Ricardo breaks the news to everyone that the lad is actually a victim of hallucinations and hypnosis. Woo! Thank goodness the ML is not a complete lunatic. Ricardo feels sad for the boy who is too young to be an assassin, while Chloe is so mad and demands punishment for everyone who exploits defenseless children. Mother of the Year. They can't keep him like that, so Mom asks Lennox to temporarily put him in the forest's small cage for wild animals as a precaution since he's still an assassin. Ricardo offers to cast a captive spell on him, and Lennox decides to use his confession potion to interrogate him. Daphne is overjoyed to see her new family, the ones she created and who adore her, working so well together. The novel didn't mention that would happen to the Benedetto family once the male lead decided to leave, so Daphne can now only hope that everyone she cares about will be happy after she changes the story's plot. Since she has already chosen the path of not killing the male lead, she intends to grow closer to the boy, believing that a bit of friendliness might help change the story. And that plan will undoubtedly end up with falling in love. Daphne is running in her dreams and is shocked that she can move her legs. She wonders why she's running and believes that someone is chasing her, so she turns to look behind her and sees nothing but darkness. Just in time, the butler arrives to wake her up, apologizes profusely for startling her, and introduces himself as Winston Cheshire, the butler of the Benedetto estate. She informs the butler that she wants to see the boy again in the forest cage, but as Winston pushes the wheelchair for her, she wonders where he obtained it, only to discover that they had it ready in case she needed it. I knew it! Daphne can't believe her family tricked her, but the butler chuckles and says they were probably only trying to keep her safe. They really just want to get close to you, that's all. Daphne finds the forest vast, and they come to a halt in front of the cage, but she cannot see the boy, so Winston leans in to see him in the corner, and to add proof that he's really inside, his tummy begins to growl. Winston is positive that the kid is really starving, but given that he did not touch the food they provided, Winston believes that the boy is likely trained to follow orders. The butler adds that the kid must have been brainwashed to only act according to orders, which reminds Daphne of the orphanage where there is plenty of food in the kitchen, but she is beaten, so she has to get used to starving, and for some reason, she wants to make sure he eats. She asks Winston to take her closer to the boy because she wants to feed him the food, but Winston refuses, claiming that it's too risky. So Daphne uses her cuteness to persuade him that she is certain that the poor boy is extremely hungry, but not eating because he's afraid of adults, and perhaps he will eat if she feeds him. Winston gives up and really can't stop her, so he merely begs her to stay outside the cage and orders her not to put her hand inside. As she gets closer to the boy, she greets him, but this makes him angrier. Well, that is better than no emotion at all. Believing that he is on guard, Daphne considers a decent method to approach him and remembers that she must approach him slowly and gently. She is confident that it'll work because her mother used the power of kindness to make her open up. She holds a sandwich plate and asks him why he didn't eat, convincing him that if he's hungry, he can't move or run away, causing the male lead to flinch and his eyes to turn to the dish she's holding. He is cute. She places the plate inside the cage to make it easier for him to eat, hoping he will enjoy his meal, and offers him a bottle of water as well. As soon as Daphne says he can eat, the boy begins to consume his food, making her so pleased. Before they leave the forest, she lets Winston give the boy her blanket because it's cold in the forest. And while the male lead sits there in silence, she promises to bring him something yummier the next time. Daphne asks him not to do anything silly until she returns, and smilingly adds that she hopes to know his name the next time they meet, and she will tell her name as well, waving her hand as they go. Our sweet little angel. During dinner, Chloe informs Daphne that she is not permitted to visit that boy again, but she protests that it is cold and lonely outside the forest. Nonetheless, Chloe is adamant that he is dangerous because he grew up as an assassin. Daphne believes she needs to get closer to the kid in order for them to be friends, but she must persuade her mother, and then all of a sudden, she remembers that she can use her second wish to allow her to spend time with that boy. Daphne uses her pleading eyes and swears that she will not enter or open the cage. She also guarantees that she will never visit the kid without a companion, and that if the kid continues to threaten her, she will give up. After seeing Daphne's concern for the child, Chloe can do nothing but sigh and agree, on the condition that she keeps her promise, making Daphne so happy. If it means seeing Daphne's huge smile, then any mom would agree. Today, Ricardo pushes her wheelchair into the forest, and as soon as the boy sees Daphne, he lights up like a puppy, eagerly awaiting his owner's return. Daphne notices that the boy does not eat his food again, so she asks Ricardo to assist her in getting down on the ground, which Ricardo initially refuses, since the ground is cold. Our girl, though, is well aware that her older brother came along with a bag packed with all her needs. He then lays a blanket and pillow for her to sit on, and the most important item in his bag is his homemade chocolate, which Daphne actually doesn't like because it's too sweet. But how can she refuse when Ricardo is so happy? Family is really more than blood. Now that they're closer, she asks him if he's hungry as he drools, staring at her basket. She then informs him that she bought warm soup, bread, and some fruit. After she explains that she couldn't just hand him the food, he is quick to suggest that she beat him in return. Ricardo then informs her that the child did not eat yesterday because he could smell the confession potion they used. Daphne's heart hurts after the boy shares that the people who took him used to beat him up. They both experience mistreatment and cruelty. She tells him that she does not have the strength to hurt him, but she smiles and introduces herself, and he reluctantly reveals his name as well, Ragnar. As he happily devours Daphne's preparations, Ragnar can't help but make adorable comments about how good they are. But when he sees Ricardo, who is standing behind our girl and has those striking red eyes, his demeanor completely changes. Ragnar starts to seem frightened since Ricardo's towering stature reminds him of the adults who used to hit him, which surprises our ever-loving big bro. The fact that her brother appears menacing makes Daphne wonder if his size is to blame, so she invites Ricardo to sit with her. Almost immediately after that, she observes Ragnar calming down, and she is now certain that Ragnar too was assaulted by grown-ups, which is something that is similar to what she experienced. Like her, Daphne wants Ragnar to understand that there are still nice and warm things in this world, so she begins to offer him hot chocolate, which she describes as her favorite drink. Ragnar gives it a shot, and after he has finished the entire mug, his eyes light up with excitement as he appears to have discovered his favorite drink. OMG, his cuteness is really something! Daphne grins as she sees him enjoying the drink, but Ragnar looks away as she keeps staring at him, making him worried that Daphne will be disgusted by his sharp purple eyes. It is adorable, though, that he looks like a cat yet behaves like a dog. Before responding to Ragnar's concern, Daphne shows him her bandaged legs, explaining that she is unable to walk. Then she returns the question, asking if Ragnar finds her unsightly. Well, our guy here sees flowers when he looks at Daphne, so he clearly doesn't see her disgusting at all. And so Daphne also responds that she actually likes his purple eyes. Then she goes on to say that she plans to visit him every day just to look into his eyes, which makes him happy and makes him flush. To be each other's childhood best friend is the best. After a week of trying, Ragnar still won't eat the meal that Lennox adds the truth serum to due to the foul smell, so Daphne devises a better approach. She comes up with a fantastic idea, using a game where they can ask each other questions, and our puppy Ragnar's innocence helps them figure out where the assassins are. When they finally did search the area, it was too late. Nobody was there. I really want to know who these people are! Today, Daphne finds that Ragnar has a brother who promised to pick him up eventually, but given that he is now alone and was raised by assassins, she believes his brother abandoned him. Poor Ragnar. At exactly that moment, Ricardo shows up holding something that seems suspicious. Ricardo brought with him some magical potions and is currently making something while explaining everything to everyone. Daphne is trying to make sense of what Ricardo is up to when he gives her the stick and tells her to follow the trail he made. Daphne enjoys it as it reminds her of the game Connecting the Dots, and Lennox is very patient as he carries her. Ricardo then asks her to place the stick in the center of the magic circle she has just traced, after which he touches it and begins to glow. This is just making Daphne more confused, so Ricardo explains that he has been observing Ragnar for the past week and thinks he is not under any spell anymore. After consulting with the family, they decided to link the estate and the forest so Daphne could access the magic portal. Ricardo continues by saying that getting to the forest is becoming more difficult now that it's getting colder, but they can't stop Daphne from seeing Ragnar, so a magic portal is thought of. They are all taken aback when Ragnar slaps his own face to ensure that he's not dreaming and joyfully informs Daphne that he can now spend more time with her, while Lennox offers to apply medications to Ragnar's face, warning him that he frightens everyone, but he merely smiles. Daphne can't help but question if the male lead in the novel is supposed to be a dummy. Who doesn't like a male lead that has golden retriever energy, though? Upon reaching the portal unnoticed that evening, Daphne feels happy. She closes her eyes, thinking Ragnar will be shocked that she visited him at such a late hour. She proceeds to the center of the diagram and finds herself instantly transported to the forest. Upon opening her eyes, she finds herself standing in front of the cage, but it's completely dark, and she completely disregards the possibility that Ragnar is already asleep. In a blink of an eye, her excitement transforms into dread. The nighttime brings back terrible memories of the people who despise her, and she starts to panic. Daphne's hands won't stop shaking, and her mind is screaming for help until she notices something sparkling and glowing in the dark, and discovers that it's Ragnar's eyes that light and dazzle so wonderfully. It makes her calm down, and she begins complimenting how his eyes are more lovely than the moon that lights up the sky. Ragnar then asks her if she sneaks out because she misses him. He now knows how to crack a joke while Daphne offers him a hot cocoa, which he gratefully accepts and begins to sip in front of her, making her smile. Daphne plans to come every day to play with him and every night to smuggle some snacks for him, figuring that as they become closer, he will trust her more and it will be difficult for him to dislike her. Daphne is relieved since she believes that everything is going according to plan. Ragnar is suddenly curious about why she dislikes sweets. She just tells him that it's because they're overly sweet and she's afraid of melting along with them. She thinks it's true that if something is excessively sweet, you tend to lose sight of reality. She fears that, like marshmallows, her resolve to carry out her revenge will also melt away. Ragnar laughs, thinking she's like a baby who fears melting away. This makes her blush because she cannot believe she's being treated like a baby by a little kid. So she turns around and tells him she's leaving, but he squeezes her hand and reassures her that he will hold her so that she will not melt away, and promises to be by her side from now on, giving her a big smile. But she is concerned about whether Ragnar will stand by her side once he discovers that she is the villain's daughter. Lennox touches the new leaves sprouting on the ground and tells everyone that spring is on its way, reminding Daphne that it has been 2 months since she arrived at the Benedetto estate, and a month since she met Ragnar, which reminds her that Ragnar appears to have a secret these days because she finds him doing something in his cage, but he hides it as soon as he sees her, leaving her wondering what it is. Ricarda suggests that they travel somewhere with Daphne when the spring arrives, causing Ragnar to react fast and declare his wish to go with Daphne. He squeezes the iron bars hard enough for him to react by gripping his left wrist, prompting Daphne to check on him, only to discover a fresh wound. Lennox promptly treats his wound and uncovers why they have a missing plate. Ragnar must have shattered it and attempted to clean it up, but suffered an injury instead. They soon learn that Ragnar chose not to tell them because he believed he would get into trouble, and he chuckles as he shows Daphne that the scar looks cool, which Daphne disagrees with. Our poor boy doesn't understand why Daphne is upset when everyone has informed him that scars are medals of honor, leaving the Benedetto siblings to look at him with disbelief. Daphne shivers at the thought that Ragnar's abusers not only used violence, but also convinced him that getting hurt was acceptable. She then holds Ragnar's hand, emphasizing that no scars are badges and that being harmed should never be normal. Ragnar is so worried seeing Daphne sad, but then Lennox cuts into their conversation, carrying his baby sister as it's now time to go home. But before they go, Daphne makes Ragnar promise never to hide his injury since she does not want to see him hurt, which makes him realize Daphne is concerned about him. Seeing Daphne's worrying makes him smile widely, and he vows to never hide his pain. Even after that, Daphne can't help but be upset, and she desperately wants to know where they mistreated Ragnar and raised him to be an assassin. She plans to uncover more about his life and pay him a secret visit at night. That night, as they are conversing, Daphne discovers that the people who trained Ragnar promised to take him to his brother if he became an assassin, but he refused. So they forced Ragnar and cast a spell on him to turn him into a killing machine. With a charming smile, he concludes his story by expressing his gratitude to her for saving him. Now that he gets to ask, Ragnar inquires as to Daphne's fear of the dark. Daphne reveals that her hatred for the dark stems from the memory of her cold and dark father. Ragnar becomes interested as to why her father abandoned her, but Daphne is unable to tell him that it is because she's the villainess's daughter, for fear that he will detest her as much as everyone else. But then she has the realization that it would be easier to accept if Ragnar hates her now, So she confesses while crying that she is the villainess's daughter who deserves to die. I just hope she stops calling her mom wicked, because she isn't, but rather the legal wife. Daphne is unable to see Ragnar's reaction due to the darkness, and she begins to overthink the possibility that he's gazing at her with distaste, as everyone else does. But she is surprised when Ragnar appears to be unconcerned that she's the wicked Duchess's daughter. He holds her hands and believes she does not deserve punishment since she is too kind for it, which causes Daphne to break down in tears again. Our not-so-big boy assures delicate Daphne that he will ensure that no one mocks her again, and that he's going to protect her from now on. Hearing those words warm Daphne up because everyone dislikes her in this life, and she only has herself to rely on. But now that Ragnar is holding her hand, she recognizes she has someone on her side. Ragnar then brightens the mood by asking if she considers him a friend, which causes Daphne to pause and reflect, since she has long since forgotten the feeling of having a close friend. After remembering that friends in her past life were people who brought joy and laughter into her life, she enthusiastically declares that Ragnar is her friend. But her chest tightens, and she finds herself gasping for air just as she's about to finish speaking. When she falls, Ragnar, who is confined to the cage, can only scream. Meanwhile, back at the Benedetto estate, everyone hurries upstairs when they hear a commotion and discover Ragnar crying over the portal, his clothes torn up and carrying an unconscious Daphne. So, all along, Ragnar could have simply escaped? They all run to examine Daphne's condition, and Chloe notices she has a very high fever. She carries her daughter and orders Lennox to follow her, while Ricarda takes care of Ragnar. After reassuring Ragnar that he will not be sent back to the cage, Ricarda carries him while tending to his wounds. After Ricarda uses his magic to cure Ragnar, Big Bro already knows Daphne has been sneaking out every night to see him. And what's new to him is that Ragnar has always had the ability to escape the cage. However, seeing how worried this dangerous kid is for his baby sister, he offers his hand and smiles, informing him that they now can visit Daphne. Ricarda's kindness astounds Ragnar, and while he used to be afraid of him, he no longer is after realizing that this grown-up isn't holding him responsible for what happened to Daphne. He then reaches out and takes Big Bro's hand. As he absorbs the experience of having an older brother, our cute little boy gazes up at Ricarda with pure admiration. He looks so tiny and adorable! After waking up, Daphne feels a sharp ache in her throat, but it passes fast when she notices Ragnar sitting by her side, his eyes filled with tears. He then explains what happened, and Daphne calls him a dummy after realizing that he could have fled but remained in that cage, waiting for her every day. Ragnar immediately blames himself for getting Daphne sick, but our girl merely grins and repeats what she was going to say that night. Ragnar is her friend. This makes our cute boy here extremely happy, and he instantly hugs his friend. Chloe then rushes to her side, relieved that she's finally awake after being asleep for a week. Now that Daphne is awake, Chloe takes a serious tone and finally asks Ragnar why he continues to stay in the cage. He firmly claims that Daphne may be scared of him because he first attempted to hurt her. And although knowing that he cannot stay at the Benedetto estate, he chooses to get out of the cage because Daphne's health is more important. Chloe smiles and praises Ragnar for saving her daughter, then tells him that she's been searching for his brother and discovered that he's a nasty person. With that said, Mama Chloe invites him to keep staying at their home if he wishes. Just about time, Mom. Ragnar instantly expresses his eagerness to stay and even asks Chloe to reassure him that this is not a prank, which Mama confirms. Daphne envelops her friend Ragnar in a bear hug, and our bashful boy here returns the embrace. These little ones are just too cute. After that, they all sat down to dinner with Ragnar, who is now part of the family, and Daphne couldn't be happier. That night, Mama Chloe enters Daphne's bedroom and keeps an eye on her sleeping daughter. She keeps her worry about Daphne's health under wraps, but as she glances at her legs, she starts to grieve. Daphne is scared of the outside world, so they've tried everything at home to heal her legs with medicine and magic, but nothing works, leaving Chloe with little choice but to entrust her treatment to a guy she knows. Ragnar has settled in nicely at his new home after a while. Reading is something that he and Daphne are learning with the help of Chloe. Occasionally, he assists Lennox with his tasks, and in other instances, he is learning how to cook with Ricarda. Ah, a life these kids deserve. Today, he surprises Daphne with a handcrafted purple scarf and gloves. She then discovers that this is the thing he had been hiding and doing while still in the cage. It looks shabby, and the length is off, and it's not even winter anymore, but our girl finds it charming, so she wears it to reassure our sweet boy here, claiming that she can still wear them in the morning and night when it's chilly. She also mentions that she loves the color purple he used, which makes Ragnar very content. Just then, a white-haired guy enters the room and kneels before Daphne, crying and claiming to be her father. Well, Daddy, whoever you are already a greater father than her actual dad. His statements confuse the kids, but this man cannot stop crying at the notion of meeting his own daughter for the first time. Ragnar remains on guard, but Daphne notes that his gold eyes are identical to hers. Only nobles in the kingdom have golden eyes, so this crybaby in front of her must be a nobleman as well, until Mama Chloe appears, fuming and screaming this man's name, Axelius. The dashing man gets to his feet, continues to cry, but this time he surprises the kids by calling Chloe honey and complimenting her beauty. Oh my, Mama has a lover? Then Chloe approaches him, and rather than being all sweet and romantic, she hits him multiple times for his unannounced visit, which shocks the kids. Axelius keeps sobbing and then says how heartbroken he is that Chloe is taking care of their child secretly, which makes Mama blush. As she screams in embarrassment, she tells him that Daphne is not his daughter, which breaks his softy heart. Lennox then chooses to take Daphne outside so that the two adults may discuss the misunderstanding in privacy. Axelius calms down and feels defeated when Chloe refuses to tell him who Daphne's father is. Well, he actually has every right to be suspicious because he and Chloe spent the night together 5 or 6 years ago before he left for war. I really hope they rekindle their love story since they are great together. They then discuss Daphne's leg, and Chloe says that they've done everything but can't cure it. Axel is even more taken aback that Lennox and Ricarda, the best magicians and alchemists in their kingdom, were unable to treat Daphne. Whoa, big bros are powerful! Axel has come to understand that Chloe called him because their only option is to get Daphne treated at the temple. Mama Chloe begins to cry because if the temple cannot heal her daughter, Daphne will be compelled to endure life without legs, so she begs Axel, who quickly holds her hand and assures her that he will do everything he can to save Daphne. He then gives her a comforting smile as he mentally notes that he will do everything for the one he loves, even if it means betraying his family name. I see. He is a big shot. Is that why he and Mama Chloe never got together? Anyway, after a week, Daphne is now preparing to go to the temple today. She expects Lennox to accompany her, but he simply smiles and tells her that a paladin is going to take her to the temple. Then, Axelius Chainard bursts into the room, startling Ragnar and Daphne with his stunning appearance in his paladin uniform. Although Daphne wants Ragnar to accompany her, she recognizes that it's best for him to stay because he is uncomfortable in large groups. Like Ragnar, she fears that someone will identify her as the evil Duchess's daughter if she ventures out. However, her determination to walk again is driving her, as she does not want her family or Ragnar to endure any harm as a result of her. Outside the carriage, Chloe is waiting to give her a lovely hat that will serve as a disguise. She thanks her mom with a bright smile, confident that the hat will keep her out of trouble. Chloe informs her that the temple is closed to guests today, so she doesn't have to be concerned. And her family, including Ragnar, wave to her, wishing her a safe journey as she smiles and thanks them all for giving her courage. Everyone greets Sir Chainard as they approach the temple, prompting Daphne to believe he is a paladin after all. 2 soldiers salute the paladin, informing him that she is waiting for him inside. And as they enter the room, Chainard is greeted by a woman dressed entirely in white, whom Daphne learns to be a saintess. Saint Johanna leans towards Daphne as Chainard explains that Daphne's legs were injured in an accident and cannot be repaired through magic or alchemy. Saint Johanna then offers to start the therapy right away, and her hands begin to glow and shine as Daphne watches God's power manifest on her. She feels her legs getting warm, and Saint Johanna tells her to move them. Our girl tries hard to move her legs while Chainard watches her, and Saint Johanna continues to pray for her. Voila! They are all thrilled that she moves her foot slightly, and Saint Johanna explains that it takes a lot of power, but her legs can be restored, making Daphne smile as she realizes that the god's mercy is finally upon her. Meanwhile, beyond the entrance, the crown prince of the Clement's kingdom is enraged because the guards are preventing him from entering the temple to see Grand Duke Axelius. Oh, Dad isn't just a paladin, but also a Grand Duke! Inside the temple, the saintess wants a private conversation with Axel for 1 minute, leaving Daphne alone in the sanctuary. After checking all around, she sees that no one is there. She takes off her hat since it's getting stuffy. Suddenly, the door to the temple flings open and the young prince sprints in. In a rage, the prince approaches Daphne, notices her golden eyes, and demands to know if she's the Grand Duke's daughter. At the same time, Dad is anxiously awaiting the saintess's words and finds out that Daphne will recover in due time. The Saintess goes on to explain that Daphne is unlike any other kids, so treating her would require a lot of power. However, Daphne's fragile and little body could not withstand much power all at once, so they agreed to have her treated at intervals, which would take more than a year to properly recover. The Saintess notices how frightened Axel appears, and given that Daphne has his eyes and Chloe's white hair, as well as the fact that everyone in the capital knows how much Axel loves Chloe, she is convinced that Daphne is their daughter. With that in mind, Saintess Johanna urges Axel to assure Chloe that she will accept responsibility for Daphne's treatment. He didn't mention Chloe, so he realizes the Saintess must have misunderstood them as parents. But before he can explain, they hear Daphne screaming outside. Axel rushes outside and finds the young prince yelling at Daphne for having gold eyes when he doesn't. A spoiled prince, I see. Daphne is in a state of panic and has broken down in tears since the prince's constant pointing at her makes her remember the children in the orphanage who bully her. Mr. Crying Man rushes to defend her from the prince, and when Daphne hears him address the child as Your Highness, she realizes he's the crown prince and the female lead's fiancé. Looks like we found the second male lead. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? The cranky kid is Simon Rogelio Clemens, the crown prince and sole successor to the Clemens kingdom. Despite his regal aura and the love he receives from both his parents, Simon harbors an inferiority complex due to his lack of golden eyes, a symbol of the imperial family. In the novel, the crown prince is engaged to the female lead, but he despises her because she has golden eyes, which makes him feel insecure. This young prince is enraged because he believes his uncle has closed the temple doors in order to plot against him, knowing that if he dies, Axel will be next in line for the throne. The Grand Duke makes it clear that he has already told his brother, the Emperor, that he has zero interest in the throne, and he is frustrated that his own nephew feels he's planning to betray him. This calms the little prince, who then asks his uncle, in a soft voice, why he closed the temple, prompting Axel to inform him that they had come to treat Daphne. Simon is startled when Axel states that Daphne isn't his daughter because they look remarkably alike, which also surprises Saint Johanna. Afterwards, Simon returns to the royal palace where his mother observes his unusually long face, but decides to discuss it later because they have an appointment with his fiancée. Normally, Simon would have a few crown princess candidates to choose from, but because he lacks golden eyes, they must ensure that the future crown princess has one to compensate for his lack. And what's worse, even his mother is not proud that he inherited his eyes from her. They claim he is loved, but what is this, Empress? You're only fueling this boy's insecurities. Regardless, the Empress asks her son to bear with the fact that his fiancée isn't completely noble before they enter the room, which makes him wonder why he needs to rely on other people to make up for what he lacks. As soon as they enter the room, a girl warmly introduces herself as Maria Horonis, but Simon can't help but compare her eyes to Daphne's, which he considers to be more beautiful golden eyes. Oh, did the prince fall for our girl at first sight? True though, Daphne has a lighter tint, while Maria, her half-sister, has a darker and duller shade of golden eyes. Anyway, Axel has returned Daphne home, and he gets an earful from Mommy since he brought not one, but a stack of gifts for Daphne. Our girl can't help but smile as she recalls the way Axel cheered her up by showing her around the city, and how the merchants mistook him for her father warms her heart, making her wonder if this is what it's like to be loved by a dad. Ragnar then interrupts her thoughts, asking about her trip, prompting Daphne to give him his present. The little boy's eyes brighten when he discovers it's a box of chocolates, and her mother sheds joyous tears upon discovering that Daphne's legs can heal. Following that, Axel has grown close to Daphne and Ragnar since he frequently visits to play with them, and he now tells his life story, which doesn't appear in the novel, something Daphne finds intriguing. I see you, mister. To win Mommy's heart, he's trying to get the favor of her daughter. Well, I'm rooting for you. Axel continues his story, recounting a time when he ventured into a vast dungeon filled with so many traps that only a handful of people managed to escape alive. Ragnar worries as he listens to Axel, questioning if he wasn't at all scared. However, Axel simply smiles, explaining that he had endured everything to make more people happy, as it was his duty as a temple knight to protect them. While listening to Axel's stories, Daphne can't help but think that if someone genuine like Axel had been emperor, he would have seen her mother suffering and she wouldn't have died so tragically. She begins to wonder where her mother is buried and hopes she's resting in a warm woodland, but she is still saddened knowing she will never see her mother again. Her mother really has a beautiful smile, and her father's a jerk for cheating on her. Time flies by, and it's already summer. Daphne's legs haven't magically healed, but she has been visiting the temple frequently for treatments. Today, she practices walking slowly with Saint Johanna, and despite her shaking legs, she's able to get up, prompting Axel to cry, but making the Saintess chuckle since Daphne has been able to stand for a while now. But this guy just keeps crying every time. Aw, that's so cute though. Johanna then instructs Daphne to begin walking forward. Despite her trembling and discomfort, Daphne tries her hardest and manages to take a few steps. The development fills Axel with joy, and he rushes to embrace his daughter. Yes, accept it, sweetie. This guy is now your daddy. To celebrate, they stop by a cake shop after their temple appointment, but they get caught up by severe rain. Axel believes it would be dangerous to return home right now, so he joyfully recommends that they spend the night at his palace instead. And when they arrive, Daphne is taken aback by just how big it is. Mr. Crying Man's manner shifts to a more noble one as he asks his butler to arrange a bath and proper clothes for Daphne, while instructing everyone to leave. Granny, the head maid, takes Daphne from Axel and can't stop smiling at her because Axel has been gushing about her, describing her as his own cute daughter. Chloe better take this guy's hand immediately. The head maid then chooses to get her something hot to drink and leaves the room, while Daphne notices that her clothing fits perfectly, leading her to believe that Axel made it specifically for her. The fact that Axel is so pleased to brag about how much he loves her, he even washed her feet at the temple earlier, has made her wish he had been her real dad. It's okay, he can be now. Just then, she hears a knock and is startled to realize it's the Crown Prince. Daphne is terrified because she worries Simon will yell at her again, but it turns out that the young kid only wants to apologize for frightening her the first time they met, and promises to be more careful from now on. Aw, how sweet of him to apologize. The room becomes awkwardly silent as our girl is surprised that this cranky boy knows how to apologize. But it does make her feel better, so she smiles and accepts his apology, making Simon beam as well. She finds out that Simon sought refuge in his uncle's palace from the rain, and had earlier followed her to the temple, but had been unable to find the right time to approach her. He then sits next to her, and seeing how she tried to cover herself up that day, asks if she hates her eye color, which she honestly confirms, saying she prefers purple over gold. This puzzles Simon because gold is a symbol of nobility, but Daphne simply states that she does not need it because she's not a member of the imperial line, and it reminds her of someone she dislikes, her cheating father. This motivates the young little prince to open up about his issues, which our girl senses, but she has no time for this because she's still dealing with her own nightmares. So she asks the prince to leave, stating that she's tired. However, she is taken aback when Simon cries because he lacks golden eyes, and admits to being jealous of her. He's an innocent child who simply wants to be accepted for who he is. Okay, we now have another sweetie pie that needs protection. Despite her own issues, Daphne isn't the type to turn a blind eye to a crying child, so she reassures him that he doesn't need to bottle up his feelings and she is willing to listen. Simon calms down and explains that everyone in his family has golden eyes except him, and while they tell him his eyes are good, he knows they're talking behind his back since golden eyes must be passed down. He tears up, wondering if he is to blame for being born without the so-called precious golden eyes, which upsets Daphne and prompts her to ask whether, without the golden eyes, he would not become the crown prince, or if his parents would not accept him as their son. This causes Simon to reflect and realize that his parents love him, so there should be no problem. And Daphne advises him to stop listening to other people's opinions because there's nothing wrong with him. Simon then turns to face her and asks if she really doesn't care that he doesn't have golden eyes, and he wants her to swear it. Our little crown prince begins to cry again the second Daphne ensures this. He has longed his whole life for someone to tell him that it's all right to be born without golden eyes. After all of the crying, Simon's eyes get puffy, but he apologizes to her again and properly introduces himself, as Daphne does. He then gets up and walks back and forth since he's shy about asking Daphne to be her first friend, but sorry little guy, that spot is already taken by our precious Rara. As a result, she asks if he'd like to be her second friend, which he accepts since he has no other choice. Second friend equals second lead, I guess? Just then, Dad enters the room and is shocked to find his nephew's swollen and puffy eyes. The little crown prince proudly reveals that he has come to apologize to Daphne, and that they have even chosen to become friends, which Axel finds unlikely, and the two begin squabbling. At least we know that these two don't actually hate each other. Anyway, Axel sits down next to Daphne and gives her a butterfly brooch, which Daphne finds surprising because it's the exact brooch she was admiring in the market earlier. And the fact that Axel noticed it makes her very happy. Simon blushes because of how lovely she appears with the brooch, her smile, or both, while Axel cries because this is the first time Daphne has smiled so broadly at him. Everything Daphne does is like a milestone for him. Such a cutie. After putting Daphne to sleep, Axel goes out and receives information that the person spreading rumors to the Crown Prince is none other than our girl's cheating biological father, Duke Heronis. He made his daughter Simon's fiancé, and now I'm guessing he wants the throne too? This frustrates Axel because he does not want his little nephew to become entangled in the adult's mess, especially because he's already under a lot of pressure, partly because of his lack of golden eyes. Messing around with a child is a filthy act, prompting his butler to advise that they should warn Duke Heronis. When they get home the next day, Daphne's mother hugs her and asks about her stay at Axel's mansion. Daphne is all smiles as she states she had a wonderful time, and Axel even sang her to sleep, which surprises her brothers. The kids are chatting when Mommy Chloe approaches Axel to thank him and offers to return the favor, which Axel initially declines. But Chloe persists, prompting this man to blushingly ask her out on a date. He finally made a move! Chloe smiles as she happily accepts, causing the pure guy to cover his mouth in shock and joy. But when Chloe finds out that Axel got Daphne a beautiful hairpin, the whole romantic vibe goes out the window. Mommy is furious because she still hasn't given her daughter a hairpin, and Axel has stolen her joy as a mother. So say goodbye to the date. Can these two get married already, please? Still, our guy isn't giving up. So after a few days, he finds another chance to ask Chloe, explaining that the temple is closed to outsiders today, so they can go together while Daphne gets her legs treated. Chloe looks at the kids and declines his offer because she is concerned about leaving Ragnar alone. But Daphne offers that they all go together, which worries Ragnar, because people might be terrified of his eyes. Daphne consoles him, suggesting that he can simply wear sunglasses and will even teach those who want to harm him a lesson. This improves his confidence, so he chooses to tag along. Our little guy looks adorable in his sunglasses, and he can't help but be thrilled by how beautiful the temple is. Daddy carries Ragnar so they can wait downstairs, while Mommy takes Daphne to St. Johanna for treatment. See this? Such a happy family! Chloe then comments on how happy she is to be able to see how she receives her therapy, which surprises Daphne because Axel usually reports it to her, but Chloe merely grins and says it's just a mom thing. Daphne is filled with immense happiness as she has never experienced such love before. These precious moments are ones she hopes will last forever, and she wishes to never grow older. It is truly heartwarming to see how she values each moment. After her treatment, Chloe requests that she go see Axel and Ragnar first, since she still wants to speak to the Saintess. However, when Daphne arrives, she is surprised to see the two boys fighting. Simon claiming to be Daphne's official friend, while Rara refuses to accept him because Daphne hasn't shared anything about him. After calming the two boys, Daphne holds their hands and introduces them to each other. She then stresses that they're both her friends and encourages them to get along. However, when she instructs them to shake hands, they both react and turn their backs while Daphne wonders why they dislike each other, making Exelius giggle. Dad knows what's going on. The two boys decide to join Daphne in the library, who then announces that she will be reading, so they better stop bickering and just keep silent. While holding their hands, she tells them that she prefers calm individuals in public places, to which they both agree. Since they've settled down, Daphne decides to read until her mother arrives. What else can you do to keep your friends quiet? Bring them to the library. She is reading a book featuring a beautiful white butterfly, and it dawns on her that her interest in butterflies began when a purple butterfly helped her in the forest, for which she is deeply grateful. On the first page, she reads that everyone shouldn't avoid death because it will lead them to God, which Daphne finds ridiculous since if what she's reading is true, why should anyone, especially her mother, have to go through a painful death just to meet him? She wants to continue reading, but the last page is missing, so she looks at both boys. Her frustration subsides when she notices that they're both sleeping peacefully, so she decides to take a nap as well. Meanwhile, Axel doubts Chloe's decision to make Daphne her successor because the child is so frail. But Chloe merely grins while quoting the missing page of the book Daphne was reading, which states that while death will lead you to God, those who escape death will meet their true selves. Daphne has already evaded that fate, so Mommy is confident that she can handle her business. In the Hronis mansion, Maria approaches her father's office to present him with a flower crown, which this awful Duke happily accepts, making even his own attendant cringe at how the Duke can conceal his wickedness. The Duchess then enters to carry Maria out, apologizes for disturbing him, and even kisses him before leaving. Seeing this guy with a happy family disgusts me, as if he hadn't locked up his first wife and abandoned his daughter. In any case, the Duke's tone shifts the moment his family gets out, and they go into a discussion about Viscount Patrick, who has gotten under the Emperor's nerve due to his involvement in the slave trade. The Viscount lost his wealth, his wife divorced him, and he's now plotting revenge on the Imperial family. So the Duke's attendant suggests that they simply pass along information about the Crown Prince so that the Viscount can kidnap him at the temple. And then they rescue the Crown Prince while blaming it all on Grand Duke Axel. This will undoubtedly cause an internal conflict between the Crown Prince and the Grand Duke, and Simon will regard him more highly than Axel, causing Duke Hronis to smile and give the order to proceed with the plan. Today in the temple, the kids have their own mini playground, which Axel created specifically for them. The three sit under the tree, and Daphne asks the Crown Prince if it's okay that he always comes to play with them. She then learns that Simon dislikes the palace because they continuously talk about his eyes, which she doesn't care about. Simon smiles since Ragnar does not appear to care about his eyes, which are making him happy. The Crown Prince then inquires as to why Ragnar always wears sunglasses, but only hears a vague response that Ragnar's eyes are bad, prompting the two to go at it again. Have you noticed something? Daphne likes anything purple, which is also the color of Ragnar's eyes. Simon prefers Daphne's golden eyes, and Ragnar simply wishes to have normal eyes like Simon. They complete each other like puzzle pieces. Just then, Daphne's hat flies away, so she decides to go get it herself in the bush. But she is surprised to encounter a lady in black who quickly covers her mouth with cloth, making her dizzy. They are now inside a carriage, and our Crown Prince may be young, but he recognizes the old guy kidnapping them as Viscount Patrick, who was convicted for selling slaves. This kid will surely become a great emperor one day. The Viscount simply orders him to shut up and belittles him by claiming Simon is only half royal because of his eyes, before poisoning him to sleep. He maintains his composure and is aware that there are 5 kidnappers, possibly more, but then he begins panicking over how to save his friends and feels responsible for involving them. Suddenly, he hears someone calling him, and he is taken aback to realize that his friends are already awake. I have no doubt that this incident will deepen their friendship even more. They are then taken to a dungeon, and because they are still pretending to be asleep, the Viscount lowers his watch and chooses not to have guards for the night because the prison would be locked anyway. As soon as the bad guys leave, Simon is startled that the poison has no effect on Daphne and Ragnar, prompting him to apologize for bringing them into this problem. But he tears up when Daphne informs him that it is also their fault because he came to the temple to play with them. Well, to put his mind at ease even further, Ragnar unties himself and frees them both with ease. Daphne and Simon hurriedly examine the door, but it looks to be locked, while my sunglasses-wearing so chill boy here has another idea. Ragnar makes use of his skills to reach the top and gladly tells him that there is a way out. The prince can't believe it and is still shaking in fear, so Daphne takes his hand and promises him that they will all make it out of the area alive, causing him to finally smile and nod. A girl who set fire to a whole orphanage and a former assassin? Your besties are reliable, so you'll be all right, little prince. While on the ceiling, Daphne notices a faint glow ahead, and Ragnar is confident that following the tunnel will lead them outside. However, Simon cautions Daphne about the need to crawl out, causing Ragnar to express concern about her capacity to do so, given that her legs aren't completely healed yet. Our girl isn't a whiner, and she's willing to bear the pain in her legs rather than die there, prompting Rara to immediately hold her hand and swear to protect them. They start crawling, and to their surprise, they discover a chamber filled with torture instruments and blood everywhere. I can already smell how nasty this room smells. Daphne notices that Rara's hands are trembling, and despite his claims of being fine, Daphne remains skeptical, especially since Simon doesn't seem to be doing well either. This prompts her to think of ways to uplift their spirits, so she grabs their hands and reminds them that, according to Exelius, a masquerade is scheduled to take place in the capital towards the end of the summer. She then turns to Ragnar and begins gushing about how much fun it would be to be able to attend the festival, wear masks, and eat delicious food. So to give the two boys the motivation to keep going, they make a pact to escape and enjoy the masquerade together. They suddenly hear men shouting, indicating that the kidnappers are now aware of their disappearance. Simon then proposes that when the searching men pass by, they move to the other room and offer to carry Daphne on his back, while Rara looks for any visible men. And when they have the chance, they run as fast as they can till they see a fence, hoping it will lead them outside. However, before they can continue, they hear loud stomping and approaching voices. They panic, looking for somewhere to hide, while Daphne notices a wooden plank and thinks the space behind it is ideal for hiding. Looking through the hole, they witness Viscount Patrick's furious interrogation of his henchmen, demanding to know if they have already found them. As he begins to worry, his guest suddenly appears in front of him, leaving him stunned by his presence. He then calls his guest Bertolt, causing Daphne's eyes to widen, while Rara looks stunned but manages to confirm that the man is indeed his brother Bertolt Theobald. My goodness, I never would have guessed that our adorable cutie pie is related to that scary-looking man. The Viscount appears to be afraid of Bertolt as he attempts to speak to him. However, Bertolt has no time for his babble and dislikes the Viscount's audacity to smile at him when the children have disappeared. Viscount Patrick reassures him that they will find them right away, but Bertolt believes that he let the children escape on purpose, prompting him to remind the old man that it is part of their agreement that, in exchange for providing him with information about the Crown Prince's whereabouts, he will hand over Ragnar to him. Bertolt then leans closer to the Viscount and suspects that he has ulterior motives, like getting more money from him. So while looking at him with dead eyes, Bertolt grabs the Viscount's neck and lifts him up until he can't breathe anymore. The kids are thankfully able to remain silent, but they are absolutely horrified as they witness this. And man, it must have added to their trauma. After releasing Viscount Patrick's body, he turns to leave, expressing his frustration at not being able to ultimately eliminate his brother. Why would he kill his own little brother? His attention is then momentarily drawn to the wooden plank, so he approaches it. But right as he is about to grab it, a heated argument erupts among the kidnappers, each pointing fingers and blaming one another for the children's disappearance. Distracted, Bertolt leaves, assuming Ragnar has already escaped. The henchmen continue to fight until one of them notices the wooden board and discovers the children hiding. He then alerts his fellow henchmen to the children's presence, while Simon bravely wields his blade and orders everyone to back off. But the man merely chuckles at the thought of the young prince protecting his friends. But lurking behind Simon is Ragnar, who appears dead serious. Hearing his brother talk like that earlier must have sparked the killer instinct in him, so he demands Simon to stay back while snatching his blade from him. In just a second, Ragnar is already on the kidnapper's shoulder, and without hesitation, he stabs the dagger into the man's chest. He then urgently instructs Simon and Daphne to make their escape immediately. Simon carries Daphne on his back and starts running, but as the man struggles to deal with Rara, he begins to alarm the other henchmen. The man's size allows him to easily lift our little boy and fling him on the ground. This alarms Simon and Daphne, so they rush to Rara to check on him. However, when his sunglasses slip off, Simon can't help but flinch at the sight of his purple eyes. Poor Ragnar looks frightened and confused too, for he isn't sure what to tell the prince, while Simon takes a step back, terrified because he's never seen such reptile-like eyes before. While the two are in shock, Daphne hears footsteps, so she has no choice but to yell for the two boys to wake up and warn them of the approaching individuals. She adds that it doesn't matter if Ragnar has different eyes, he's still their friend, and she declares that even if they are both unlike everyone else, she will remain friends with them, which genuinely moved the two boys. At that very moment, an assassin appears from behind and prepares to attack, leaving Daphne with nothing to do but shut her eyes and wait for her death. However, Ragnar swiftly leaps into action, kicks the criminal in the gut, and the man collapses to the ground. Rara is incredibly powerful for his size. He then instructs Simon and Daphne to leave the rest to him, urging them to prepare for their escape. But Daphne refuses until Simon claims that they should follow Ragnar's instructions. Before the two leave, Ragnar grabs her by the arms one last time to express his gratitude for talking to him, which makes him come to his senses. And with his usual innocent smile, he beams at Daphne, promising to make sure she and Simon can escape safely. This doesn't sound right to our girl, so she asks what's going to happen to him. But Rara doesn't answer. Instead, he rushes towards the attackers and instructs Simon to look after Daphne for him. Daphne calls out to him, but he remains unwavering in his determination to confront the attackers directly. Being the Crown Prince, Simon knows his priority, so although he doesn't want to, he chooses to run and escape. When they reach the escape door, he feels that simply unlocking it would ensure their safety, but he is hesitant to open it as he starts imagining what will happen to Ragnar if they leave him alone. Our prince is done rationalizing things, so he puts Daphne down and states that he will help their friend. His friend. No, their friendship. Although Ragnar appears powerful, they both know a kid cannot fight off adults alone. She wants to say something, but Simon just kisses her on the forehead, assuring her that everything will be all right and that she has given him the courage he needs. He then suggests that she stay there because he will return safely with Ragnar, leaving her with no choice. Daphne gets frustrated by her inability to help her friends, which leads her to believe that she is more of a burden than anything else. She then blames herself, pleads to God to help her friends, and begs him to return them to her. When she hears someone approaching, she suspects that more evil guys are on their way, which causes her to worry. But to her surprise, Axel rushes to their rescue. Finally, Daddy is here! Daphne cries in his arms as her dad apologizes for being late when they hear Simon scream for help. Look at this brave crown prince protecting Ragnar, who is already hurt! Before the assassins can do anything to the prince, Axel swiftly orders his knights to contain the enemies and ensure that no one escapes. Simon's knees finally relax as the enemies run away, but Uncle Axel catches him before he falls. Axel apologizes for the temple's lack of security, which Simon agrees to, knowing that if this becomes public, people will circulate suspicions that Axel is attempting to get rid of him. However, Simon grabs his uncle and smiles since he knows his uncle would never do that to him, causing Axel to break down as usual. Simon then returns Ragnar's sunglasses and apologizes for his previous remarks about them. He then shyly states that Ragnar's eyes do not terrify him at all. Simon goes on to say that he doesn't care what kind of person Ragnar is since he is his friend, which makes Ragnar feel warm inside, and he smiles, expressing that he feels the same way about him as well. Daphne then approaches the two and sobs with joy that her friends are safe. You know what? Whoever wins our girl's heart isn't important to me anymore. I just want these three to stay friends forever. The knights have the crown prince rest in the carriage while Ragnar and Daphne get accompanied by their brother Lennox, who is relieved to see the two safe. Lennox informs them that Ricarda is also present, but will be unable to come with them since he will assist the Grand Duke in dealing with the assassins. Yup, that bubbly brother of theirs is currently in the dungeon with the captured assassins, doing his utmost to refrain from wreaking destruction on these men who dared to harm his siblings. Yet, he decides to use his powers and sets the dungeon on fire while he smiles evilly at the shackled criminals. Big Bro here is simply an advocate of world peace, less kidnappers, means a safer world, right? Now that they're outside, the knights are voicing their disapproval of Ricarda's actions because, even though the Viscount is dead, it's still wrong to lock everyone inside the mansion and then set it on fire. Ricarda appears completely uninterested. Literally, his face says, "I just did." But still, he provides them with a rational explanation that the criminals can still escape because he did not lock the dungeon. Though nothing will change because they will still be arrested by the knights outside and executed for treason. Ricarda then notices something odd, so he questions the knight why there are troops from the Heronis dukedom and discovers that apparently they're in the area following suspicious individuals and ends up running into this mess. Big Bro does not believe these are just coincidences and the kidnapping could be connected to Duke Heronis, so he intends to investigate further. I can't wait for him to find out that this man mistreated his sister. After a few months, everything returns to normal, and our girl is now writing a letter to Simon, informing him that they are preparing for the approaching masquerade. According to what she's heard, the temple has been more heavily guarded since the incident, and as expected, the kidnapping of the crown prince made headlines throughout the empire, with everyone involved being brutally executed. Daphne then receives a knock from Lennox, prompting her to show off her progress by walking towards him and hugging his legs. She's so tiny, and yes! Our girl's legs are improving! Anyway, Lennox enters her room to show her and Ragnar their party masks, which excites Ragnar since he will see Simon. Besties now and rivals for Daphne's heart in the future. They are now on their way to the masquerade, and Daphne is relieved that Ragnar is more cheerful these days, as she has noticed how downcast he is since that incident, when he finally saw his brother but discovered that his big brother only had intentions of killing him. She feels bad for Ragnar and impulsively embraces him, which annoys big brother Ricarda and quickly separates the two, arguing that if he isn't dating, the kids can't either. Such a mood! Make the grown-ups go on dates first. When they arrive, the kids are amazed by how festive the city is, and before Ricardo leaves, he instructs that his siblings pay attention to Axel, which they excitedly comply. Axel then approaches the two and compliments their masks, followed by Simon, who exclaims about how incredible his lion mask is. Daphne then holds her two friends' hands, filled with joy, and wishes them a carefree day, hoping that they will forget everything that happened before, which makes the two boys beam, and off they go. They play, eat, and eat some more until Daphne decides to wait in line for the candied fruits, at which point she drools over the strawberry ones and unintentionally lets out a sound. The other kids hear her and begin chatting with her while introducing themselves, so our bashful girl gets pushed to introduce herself as well. When the two boys see that she's surrounded, they go over to her, but it appears that the other kids are incredibly kind. They even invite our trio to play tag with them. As a royalty, our little prince declines and simply wants to play with Daphne and Rara, but not until our girl happily states that she wants to play but requires someone to carry her because she's still unable to run. The two boys get into an argument over who gets to carry her, and as soon as Simon squats to do so, Rara kicks him! Ragnar really treats Simon more like a friend than a crown prince, so Daphne helps the poor prince and scolds the two for behaving badly. Ragnar ends up carrying Daphne, and everyone is having a blast as Axel sits on a bench and watches. Midway through their game, they become conscious of the children eyeing them from the alley. Daphne's expression changes when she realizes it's the same group of children from the orphanage that bullied her. Am I supposed to feel sorry for them? I don't know, but one thing is for sure, their past harassment towards our poor girl here is something I simply cannot forget. Daphne eventually pulls herself together after realizing that the orphans won't recognize her and that she is now Daphne Benedetto, who fought for her new life and is no longer the old Daphne who would hide away from them. The other kids are hesitant to let the alley kids play with them, prompting Daphne to say that they can just continue to play without them because they never asked to join them anyway. I can't blame her. She's endured so much at their hands when they should have supported each other, given that they're all orphans. Just then, Maria, in a rabbit mask, approaches them and asks if they want to play hide and seek, which Daphne believes will be difficult. I'm not sure if her half-sister is simply being innocent or if she's trying to make fun of Daphne by telling Ragnar that he can play if only he isn't carrying someone on his back. This clearly annoys Rara, and he starts talking back to Maria until Daphne stops him by putting a lollipop in his mouth. Daphne has no idea who Maria is, so she calmly explains that the reason playing hide and seek is difficult is that if the children are separated, it might be dangerous, prompting Maria to eventually realize this and apologize. Daphne then notices Simon holding her in the side and indicating that they should leave now. So they say goodbye to the kids and joyously walk to where Axel is, who then carries Daphne while smiling, calling herself her dad. Following that, Daphne asks Simon whether he recognized the girl in black, and while Simon isn't certain, he feels the kid is his future fiancé. Meanwhile, Maria gazes at them from a distance, sad because she wishes she could play with them. Her mother allowed her to go out because she was confident that the other kids would enjoy playing with her, but Maria believes that our trio does not like her at all. She then looks to the side and notices that the kids from the alley are still there. She invites them to play and encourages the other kids to join in, to which they gradually agree, making Maria very happy. Her parents are terrible, but is she too? We will see. Daphne sits in the carriage, worried about Maria Hronis, and wonders if Maria and Simon would end up together, given that Ragnar, the male lead, is by her side. Maria grew up to be an innocent girl, and in the original story, Simon had conflicted sentiments of love and hatred for her. But now that Simon has overcome his inferiority issue, he may fall entirely in love with her. She then begins to worry about Ragnar falling for Maria, something she does not want to happen. Guys, I believe we found the winner in our girl's heart. Ragnar then grabs her hand and asks if she's okay, and based on her reactions, he suspects she's sick, which she quickly denies. Simon also wonders whether she was uncomfortable meeting Maria earlier, but she simply smiles and tells him that she's fine and that his fiancé has nothing to do with her. Yeah, other than being her half-sister, we have nothing to do with her. The three kids are surprised to see the huge Benedetto business building, and upon entering, they are astounded by the bustling scene around them. Axel immediately asks for a worker for Salvatore, who hurries over, recognizes Daphne, and quickly lifts her while introducing himself. He sets her down and informs her that they are all on their way to her mother's location, a revelation that secretly disappoints her, as she wants to explore more of the area, but finds comfort in the idea of returning. The children are filled with excitement as they eagerly gaze out the window, and they learn that they are all heading to the Grand Duke's estate. As soon as they arrive, the two boys swiftly step out of the carriage to assist Daphne. They both extend their hands towards her, leaving her feeling a bit confused. So she chooses to accept both of their help and smiles at them. Daphne is overjoyed to find Mommy near a large tree, who instantly carries her and explains that they are able to finally dig out their box of memories. She goes on to inform them that 10 years ago, on the day of the Masquerade, she buried her memories, as well as those of Axelius and Salvatore. Salvatore eagerly digs into the ground and discovers the time capsule containing their memories, which they will pass down to their future selves. The exciting thing is that they have no idea what the other person has placed inside the time capsule. Everyone is astounded by the capsule's contents, and Salvatore is overjoyed to find his magically preserved blindfold, which helped him overcome his childhood insomnia. Chloe sees her dagger, which has saved her life multiple times, and thanks Axel for gifting it. While Simon grabs the broken bracelet and looks at Chloe, he explains to the kids that it was given to him by someone special while he was on a mission in a scary dungeon. Mommy is sweating and blushing. The three adults are currently engrossed in nostalgic conversations, which prompts the three kids to take a leisurely stroll. As they stroll along, the two boys enthusiastically propose to Daphne that they should also make their own time capsule. So cute. These three are practically copies of the three adults. Anyhow, I can feel a time skip happening here. Ragnar suggests that they will bury and open their time capsule in 10 years, and he is confident that they will still be together after a decade, which Daphne agrees with. They plan on placing the time capsule at Daphne's house because Ricarda's magic prohibits anyone from entering without permission, and Simon volunteers to find the capsule's box. Upon careful consideration, Daphne made the decision to compose a letter addressed to her future self and others. She is thrilled after creating her letters, and she hopes that when they read them, they'll bring back wonderful memories and happiness. Just as she's about to leave, she discovers the stamp on her drawer and recalls how the orphanage director hid it, so she decides to include it on their capsule. I am confident that stamps will be important in the future. That afternoon, while their babysitter Axel falls asleep under the tree, the three kids eagerly seize the opportunity to bury their time capsule. Ragnar swiftly indicates the location and proceeds to dig without pause. After that, they carefully put their pouches in the capsule, making a solemn pact to keep their contents a mystery until the designated time, a decade from now. Daphne then wonders if they managed to conceal it discreetly. She scans her surroundings and notices Axel gazing at her, giving her a wink as a silent assurance that he will keep their secret. Daphne gazes at the two, deciding not to inform them because they appear so innocently happy. Cuties. Time has flown by, and as Daphne and Ragnar sit on the bench outside, she realizes that it has been exactly 1 year since she arrived at the Benedito family and survived. Suddenly, she is surprised to see her mom from a distance, and Ragnar notices Axel, Lennox, and Ricarda. They both become intrigued by where everyone is headed and decide to follow them to find out. Using their umbrellas, they follow the group into the woods, but as Axel turns around, they hide in the bushes. Daphne stands up to check on them, but she can't find them, and the rain has washed away their footprints. They continue walking until she begins to feel pain in her feet, hating herself for stepping out in the rain when she expected to catch up with them quickly, which Ragnar notices, so he calls her attention and offers to carry her on his back. She hesitates at first, but as Rara insists on carrying her, she agrees and thanks him. While these two cuties are on their way, Daphne confesses how much she likes him and expresses appreciation for being her first friend. As they continue walking through the forest, they come upon a fox that appears smaller than the ones in the books. The fox remains still, leading them to believe it is weak because it cannot find enough food. Daphne then feeds it an apple, and to their delight, the fox munches on it. Before leaving, Rara places an umbrella on it and says goodbye to their new friend, Little Fox. They continue walking, but stop when they find 2 different roadways, and suddenly the little fox from earlier appears. The fox glances at them and darts ahead, seemingly leading them, prompting them to follow its lead and smile upon seeing everyone else. Their arrival catches them off guard, leaving Chloe confused about how they got there, yet everyone seems ecstatic to greet them. Lennox then notices the fox, which Daphne almost overlooks, so she approaches it carefully, patting it while Rara does the same. She then informs them that the fox guided them to their current location, and she gasps in the realization that throughout the second half of the novel, a fox consistently guided Rara through the dungeons. This could be that fox, so she asks her mother if they can bring it home, but Chloe reminds them that having an animal is a big responsibility, and they must commit to treating it like family. After the two promise to be responsible enough to care for the fox, it makes a kiki sound, prompting Daphne to name it Kiki, and they gladly welcome it to their family. Yay! A cutie, adorable baby fox gets adopted! After that, the kids notice the dragon prison, which makes them curious, prompting Chloe to explain about the legend of the dragon that sparked trouble for the Empire and was held captive in that very prison in front of them. Considering that these two are mommy's little troublemakers, she informs them that once they enter the prison, there's no way out unless the dragon gives them permission. She emphasizes that the door is open for now, but once it closes, it will trap them for all time, which makes Daphne shudder in terror. However, Rara walks closer to the prison, seemingly unaware of their voices calling for him, prompting Ricarda to rush and grab him. Despite this, he feels a sense of familiarity, as if he's seen it before, which makes Daphne concerned about his peculiar reaction. That night, Daphne had trouble sleeping since she keeps thinking about her real mother's death anniversary tomorrow. Determined to find out more, she decides to visit Chloe at her office and asks if she knows anything about her mom's burial. This surprises Chloe, but she had anticipated Daphne's question, so she explains that they found Freya's remains and cremated her. Daphne then learns that Chloe discovered unusual things about Freya's crimes and decided to do an investigation, but what surprises Daphne the most is that her real mom was actually a princess from the Oswald Empire. So, our girl has royal blood! This is omitted in the story, so Daphne has no idea, which leads her to wonder why they abused a princess so severely and why her mother never received assistance from her relatives. While Chloe tries to console her, she explains that Oswald was in the midst of a civil war, so when Freya was imprisoned, her two brothers were fighting for the throne. Still, Daphne cannot understand why the people hate Freya so much. So Chloe explains that the people of the slums began disappearing, and rumors began circulating that Freya kidnapped and used the people's blood to curse the imperial family and the new woman of Hronis. Daphne is certain that this is faulty since she remembers her mother simply longs for her husband, and the warmth she received was not from someone who would do such wicked deeds. Just then, they are astonished to see Axel arrive with a dismayed expression, still unable to believe Daphne is Freya's daughter. But before Chloe speaks to him, she asks Daphne to head back to her room, which the little girl awkwardly does. Daddy better not start acting coldly towards Daphne after this. She then goes to Ragnar's room, crying, and they settle to sleep together, with our guy here promising to keep her safe from her nightmares. Her fears immediately subside, and she realizes that Rara must be her light, so the two of them drift off with Kiki in the middle. Oh, they look so peaceful and pure. Mr. Crying Man begins to sob, feeling betrayed that after everything, Chloe lied to him and never revealed that Daphne is Freya's kid, not her own. He continues bombarding her with questions, asking whether only Lennox and Ricarda are aware of this secret, or if Chloe cannot trust him because he's a member of the imperial family and may attempt to harm Daphne. Or perhaps Chloe is afraid that he'll stop helping Daphne with her treatment in the temple, causing her to simply turn away, which pains Axel because it implies that the love he showed her is only worth a tiny amount of her trust. She feels horrible and tries to wipe away his tears, while Axel promises to protect whatever secret she has. Chloe goes on by explaining how Daphne came to ask for help, how she was abused in the orphanage, and how the orphanage attempted to send her to the slums. Mommy trembles as she recalls forcing Daphne to go to the forest to retrieve a flower as part of their deal, which resulted in severe leg injuries. Worse, Daphne just smiled her at that time, claiming that losing her ability to walk was a small price to pay in exchange for her life. Chloe trembles because she's terrified that her innocent daughter will suffer again if the truth is revealed, and she apologizes to Axel, claiming that she trusts him but that her heart is simply too anxious, prompting her to cry while Axel hugs her. I really hope Chloe will finally be able to love Axel since it seems that this secret is the thing holding her back. When Daphne wakes up the next morning, she discovers that Rara has a fever and immediately asks Lennox to check on him. Big Bro believes Ragnar has a bad cold and should rest for the day, so he will be unable to join Daphne and Simon to watch the play today. She is hesitant, but Rara gives her a gentle smile and says she should go since Simon will be waiting. Daphne is now in the carriage with Axel, and she promptly apologizes for hiding the truth from him. She begs him not to despise her mother Chloe, and if he wants, she's willing to stop seeing Simon and go to the temple completely. Axel makes it clear that Daphne did nothing wrong, and just because her real mother is a villainess does not mean she is, so he swears to protect her secret and never abandon her. Then, Axel gives her his trademark smile and reminds her that he still wants to be her dad, which makes our little girl feel all warm and fuzzy inside. First of all, her real mom is not a villain, and I hope she can clear her mother's name. Second, thank you, Axel, for loving our girl. Simon smiles and greets Daphne as soon as they arrive, although he is somewhat bummed that Ragnar is not present. I love how Simon doesn't see Ragnar's absence as an opportunity to solo Daphne, and how these three are simply enjoying their friendship. As the performance is ready to begin, they hear a ruckus among the paladins. The Crown Prince proposes that Axel investigate the disturbance to make sure it won't become a bigger scandal, and Axel agrees, so he leaves the two to enjoy the play alone. Both kids take their seats as the play begins. However, it appears that the drama is about Daphne's parents. They portray a couple in love and a jealous lady who interfered with their relationship and used all kinds of tactics to separate them, even if it resulted in the deaths of many. In the end, the villainess suffers a painful death in a tower, while the main characters enjoy a happily ever after. After the show, Simon comments on how terrible the play was, and he is startled to find Daphne trembling and feeling sick. The show causes her to relive her traumas, and she is now anxious that someone might recognize her, making it harder for her to breathe. The most frustrating thing about today is, her wicked father approaches them to greet the Crown Prince. But that's not all. His second wife, Eunice, who is aware that Hronis was married to Freya but chose to go all out with him regardless, also shows up. To rub salt in our girl's wounds, Maria arrives and embraces Hronis for his wonderful play. Simon's brow furrows when he learns that the Duke organized the show, which he finds unsettling. And this little prince even remarks that revealing the noble family's scandals to the world is never okay. Maria then interjects, stating that her father created the play specifically for her mother, and that her father fell in love with her mother first, which the Duke confirms. The Duke's words about love disgust the prince, so he breaks them and reveals that he has a child with his ex-wife. But the Duke flatly rejects this and clarifies that the child is only Freya's, the villainess's daughter. Simon dislikes the way the Duke says it, so he reminds him that Freya may be a villainess, but she was once his wife. Simon then expresses the opinion that if the Duke sent his daughter to Freya's homeland, the poor kid would not have to die tragically in the orphanage. Wow. The fact that he is unaware of the play's involvement with Daphne and is simply criticizing the Duke's actions based on his own beliefs makes me love this child even more. Daphne finally speaks out, asking the Duke how he feels if the villainess's daughter is still alive, which causes the Duke to give a disgusted grimace and admit that just thinking about it irks him. She couldn't stand hearing that, so she sprints away and stumbles on the street, just as a carriage is about to hit her. Thankfully, Axel arrives just in time to save her, but she's still horrified that she almost died today, reminding her of a book she once read that stated that no one can avoid death. She trembles when she realizes that despite having defied death in the novel, death is still following her. The next thing she knows, she's at home in her bed, feverish, with her mother beside her, taking care of her. Daphne immediately begins looking for Rara and rushes to his room, but she finds no one in his bed. She looks around and sees Rara in the corner acting strangely, who suddenly yells and begs her to leave. She observes his eyes are more reptile-like today, as they were when they first met, and I'm not sure what's going on, but our good boy slams Daphne to the floor. Ragnar then points a dagger at her as he quavers and sobs as if someone is controlling his every action. Fortunately, Ricarda arrives just in time to use his power to temporarily hold Ragnar in midair. Daphne is convinced that she hasn't escaped her destiny in the novel, as she has already come dangerously close to death twice today. That night, she can't sleep and starts to wonder if her mom was indeed a criminal or if she was forced into playing the villain for the benefit of the main characters. If that's the case, she begins to fear that the novel can't go on without her dying as well. But then she remembers why she fled the orphanage in the first place, to change the course of the novel. Instead of entering her mom's office, she overhears them discussing Ragnar's illness and finds out that it's not related to hypnosis, but rather something that not even Ricarda knows about. Then she finds out that because Rara cannot trust himself, he went to the dragon prison alone. I'm not sure where this is going, but the plot is really thickening. Daphne blames herself and understands that Ragnar's changes are the result of her trying to keep him, the male protagonist, by her side. She walks to the forest and asks Kiki to bring her to the dragon prison, where she discovers Ragnar sulking inside a large cage with the steel door open. As soon as Rara sees her, he apologizes for hitting her earlier, which Daphne understands, and she quickly explains that she has been seeing the future for a long time, which puzzles him. Still, she continues, claiming that in the future she saw, she was already dead, but she decided to rebel against destiny and go to Chloe, where her survival is certain. She then reveals that he is supposed to be Chloe's original heir, and that he will eventually fall in love with a girl and live happily. She knows Ragnar will find this difficult to understand, but she informs him that the future is something she read in a book, and that in order to completely escape the story, she should not become involved with the characters, which means she should no longer keep him by her side because he may kill her one day. Ragnar refuses to believe what she just said because in his heart, he could never hurt her, so he begs her to stop, forcing Daphne to scream that she wants to live and cry that she doesn't want to be anxious about dying anymore. Rara, our little sunshine, senses that Daphne is in a lot of pain, so he wants to know what he can do to comfort her and considers whether locking the dragon prison door will help. He figures that if he disappears, she'll find happiness, so he smiles at her, tells her to stop crying, and wipes away her tears before closing the door. As Daphne stands there in confusion over what just happened, she yells out Rara's name, but nobody responds, and the prison is completely dark. She is in complete panic over what she has done and runs to get help. The next morning, she wakes up in her bed, and recalling the night before makes her almost puke. She begins to panic, but her mother calms her down and suggests that they all go to Ragnar with Lennox. However, when they arrive, the dragon prison vanished, and all that remained were blood marks on the ground. After the door shut, Ragnar knew there was no getting out. He was practically willing to die for her, and now she realizes that she had pushed her friend to death for her own survival. Tears stream down Daphne's face as she admits her mistakes and says she wishes she hadn't tried to alter the storyline. Otherwise, Ragnar wouldn't have done what he did. He is alive, right? A time skip? Hopefully Daphne will be able to apologize. They're back in the mansion, and Axel checks on Chloe, who announces that they'll be leaving the Clemens Empire. Daphne was unconscious for a week, and when she wakes up, Chloe offers they leave the kingdom and travel the world because she knows Daphne is unhappy here. Before agreeing to this plan, Daphne asks Chloe to finish her story about her parents, and she learns that during the investigation, they discovered dead bodies and traces of a curse in Duke Hronis' basement, but there was no real proof that Freya was responsible, yet the trial focused on her. Daphne feels that the Duke is the one who fabricated the false charge, so she wants to clear her actual mother's identity. After what happened to Ragnar, she now welcomes death because her new goal is to protect the people she cares about. So she chooses to become stronger and requests that Chloe accompany her to the Oswald Empire. The following day, Simon receives the news about his best friend, Rara's death. He is about to visit Daphne when Axel tells him that the Benedito family left the kingdom yesterday. Simon collapses onto the couch, recalling the striking resemblance between Duke Hronis and Daphne's eyes. Given that the Duke is the only noble in their empire with golden eyes and that the child in the orphanage may have survived the fire, Simon becomes convinced that Daphne is Freya and Hronis' daughter. How can this kid be so smart? Axel then informs Simon that Daphne chose to leave quietly to avoid obstructing his path as the crown prince, a revelation that deeply pains Simon. Ragnar is no longer around, so he is the only one capable of protecting Daphne, and recalling her face makes him realize that his affections for her go beyond friendship. He wants to give Daphne reason to trust him, so he declares frankly during the meeting with his family and the Hronis that he has no intention of getting engaged to Maria. Thank you, Prince, and I have faith that Rara is still alive, yet it breaks my heart that our trio will not end up growing up together. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!